Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first meeting of the Government Study Committee. Today is Monday, June 30th, 2025. It is about 6:33 p.m. And to start, we will note that the meeting is being recorded. Now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight, for your willingness to serve on the committee. Really excited to see the work that this committee does. So I'm Olivia Antonsen. I am the Assistant Town Administrator. I'm going to be the liaison between this committee and sort of the town boards, commissions, and departments, there to answer any questions you may have or help you gather information or contact the right people to answer the questions. So our first business item is 2A, organization of the committee, appointing a chair, vice chair, and clerk. That is the board's pleasure on making nominations for that, motions for that, etc.
See the membership list, is that handy?
Oh, that would have been handy to have.
Yeah, because I can't make a motion to appoint someone else if I don't have the list. Oh, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Well, how about we ask, does anybody want to be?
Good point.
Is anybody interested in being elected the chairperson of this committee?
If we don't have voting rights,
Alternates cannot serve as chair, vice chair, or clerk.
I'm out.
You're an alternate?
You're an alternate?
Oh, I didn't know.
Okay. What's your name?
I'm Hannah.
Anna.
I'm on the second page, I think. Or I
Second,
was.
Zero?
I don't see.
There was a second page to that.
You're right.
Oh, okay, how about that? Oh, look at you. It's
First time.
stuck at the top. That doesn't seem right. Okay. I personally think it should be a resident of the town, obviously. Not some of us who are here more of a, because of our experience in the field, non-residents.
Is there non-residents on this committee?
I am.
Non-resident?
Yes.
Ah, I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, well, I'm
And
here.
what's your expertise?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm the town administrator in Webster.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
a town manager for 32 years.
Okay. So you're qualified.
It's the only reason I'm here, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so that, so we're down to 3, 5.
I'd be willing to be nominated for any position.
Okay, very good.
I guess
Did you
put
have-
me there
You
also, I'm
keep-
sorry.
Did you have an accounting degree, did you say?
I do, yeah.
Are
Okay.
you Keith?
Yes.
Okay, then I will nominate Keith Kajowski.
Gajewski.
Gajewski, close.
Close.
A lot of Polish people over next to
Yeah,
it,
few.
for chair.
I accept.
Well, there needs to be a second.
Yeah.
Oh,
I second.
All right. Second. I
Are
accept.
you taking notes, Olivia?
Michelle's doing the minutes.
All right, perfect, okay.
Hey,
Are there other nominations for chair? All right, well, due to the void, I guess I'll ask for all those in favor of Keith Gajewski for chair. You could say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right. Keith, it's your meeting now. So you can worry about the vice chair.
Okay, so we'll entertain nominations for vice chair.
I thought Paul said he'd be happy to be considered for vice chair.
Sure, I'll
Okay.
accept.
All right. I'll make a motion then to appoint Paul.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Which I was thinking of you too, so
It's quite all right.
you got away with that, so.
And we need a clerk. So are there any nominations for clerk?
Can I just ask real quick, like for a clerk on this type of board, I know like on a board of selectmen, I mean, most these days a clerk is somebody who like would verify like for state contracts or things like that. Clerk doesn't actually take minutes anymore. So I'm just thinking, what would the role of a clerk be on a board like this? I don't know, Olivia, if you have a.
Yeah, so through the chair, usually the clerk in this type of function would be, if there's something long to be read into the record, like a document of some sort that just needs to be read out loud, that would be the job of the clerk. The clerk would also chair the meeting. If there is no chairman or vice chair available, then the clerk would be in line.
Who prepares the meeting minutes for this? You do?
Yep.
Oh, then that takes off
Well,
the clerk.
I should say through the chair. Michelle does the minutes. I prepare the agenda.
Okay.
So the role of a clerk in this setting is minimal, if null.
Through the chair, I would say minimal, except for reading things out loud.
Sure.
So the person has to be
Has to know
okay
how to
reading out
read?
loud.
Okay. Paul, you know how to read out loud?
That would be my forte.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, all right.
Found a live one, who can read? Be a long night. Okay.
All right, well, I think we found our clerk, right?
Okay. I'm assuming you're Cheryl.
I am Cheryl, yes.
I will nominate Cheryl.
Leto.
Leto,
Yep.
I'm learning last name, for as clerk.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right. That was easy.
All right.
Thank you.
So in a time like this, then the chair would go and say, now, item 2B, discussion of open meeting law.
We'll now move to item 2B, discussion of open meeting law.
Perfect. So, Mr. Chairman, I know that some of you here have experience with either serving on town boards or commissions, working in local government, or have watched many meetings before. So for some of you, open meeting law is nothing new. For others, it might be good for you to visit the town clerk's office. They have a whole packet of information about open meeting law, or if you want to even refresh yourselves, if you are familiar with it, that would be your best resource. There's also the conflict of interest training that I will be emailing out to all of you. That will give you sort of the background on what's okay, what's not okay in your professional position as a committee member here in the town of Dudley. So a lot of it's just basic crash course materials. And then if you have any further open meeting law questions, you can always direct them to me. It's just open meeting law, you have to post meetings for 48 hours in advance, for example. That's a big thing. What constitutes a quorum? If we have 7 full members, a quorum would be 4 or more board members. And quorums only count for full members. That becomes an issue, for example, if we don't have enough of you present here to vote for vacations, illness, whatever. We cannot open a meeting if we don't have a quorum of the board present. So if there are any other questions that pop up between now and when this committee's work is finished, I'd be happy to answer them, but I would say town clerk's office packet of information would be the best place to start, and I can always facilitate getting that information to anybody who's interested if they're not able to come into the town hall during business hours.
Okay, thank you. Item 2C, presentation of binders and discussion of materials.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you'll see these lovely binders in front of you tonight, packed with some very interesting information. So what everybody was given the night they were appointed, that was the DLS report. So I did not include that for anybody who was actually there the night of appointment in order to try not to waste any paper. But if anybody did misplace their copies of those, let me know and I can print more. So that is what I would recommend reading first. That is the DLS report that was requested, sort of the overview of the town, what we could improve upon, what the Division of Local Services through the Department of Revenue here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts says maybe these are areas we should look at. And sort of what the committee is here to do is look at those items, do the research, and figure out the best practices and figure out what their recommendations are in terms of how we're gonna go forward with those and how we're gonna implement those, and if what DLS is saying is true. So if you look at your binders, the very first page is the Dudley Government Study Committee reference index. There is a lot more information coming. I do have sections 3 and 4 and a continuation of section 2 forthcoming. I just didn't want to completely overload the committee with information on the first night. So these are very nicely organized into sections with colored tabs. Sections 1.1 and 1.2 cover a lot of the material that was given on the night of appointment. 1.3 is the school district outlook and override history. It goes into sort of the budgetary struggles and overrides that we went through in 2023. All the relevant materials related to that. 1.4 is going to be the audit committee bylaw. That was a citizen's petition that went forward at town meeting, passed at town meeting, and then the Attorney General's feedback on that audit committee. Section 2 sort of gets into the governance, organizational studies, challenges, and legal guidance. 2.1 is the 1990 Charter Commission report. So back in 1990, which was a long time ago, there was a charter committee here in Dudley to explore whether or not Dudley would benefit from a town charter. And so it's a very old document, but the entirety of it is here in section 2.1. And then we did not adopt the charter in 1990, I'm sorry. In 2004, the topic came up again. There was a charter committee. It went to town meeting, it passed at town meeting, it went on the ballot, failed on the ballot. So I do have the supporting documentation for the 2004 study, I have the town meeting minutes, I have the ballot vote that shows you what happened there. And so as of today, Dudley does not have a charter. Whether the committee chooses to look into recommending that town do adopt a charter, that's the board's pleasure on whether or not that's a topic you all choose to research and pursue. And 2.3, which will be the last thing that we go over on this first round of information, is the highway water sewer organizational assessments. So several years ago, the idea of forming a DPW was proposed, and that's a Department of Public Works. It's here in Dudley, we have our highway department, and then we have the water department and the sewer department sort of combined under the water sewer commissioners, which operate as an enterprise fund in our accounting system. So we have a highway superintendent and we have a water sewer superintendent. Under a DPW, it'd be sort of all under one umbrella. So they looked into that. I have the entire copy, I think, of the DPW report there and the findings that they had. It's something that the town chose not to enact and pursue at that point. But again, if the committee's interested in reopening the idea of a DPW, you're all welcome to do the research on that. And again, this is just the very first night of information. I will definitely be providing much more as we go, so please bring your binders to every meeting so I can just give you the documents. We might need secondary binders because these might end up being too small. That's okay. Other than that, it's really going to be up to the committee how they want to divvy up sort of the topics that are going to be discussed, and I guess this is kind of getting into item 2D, so if the chair would like to ask if there are any questions related to 2C before we move into 2D.
Does anyone have any questions on the binder so far?
I do not know.
Then we should move on to item 2D, which is assignment of research topics.
Excellent. So, again, this is really up to the committee how they want to do this. You could follow the 16 recommendations in the DLS report for guidance and sort of divvy up research topics like that. You could use that to guide your work here and the structure of what you all choose to do. You could go related to the table of contents that we've laid out so far, and again, this is just the first night, so the research topics discussed tonight will not be the only research topics that are available. I'm sure as we go, we will find other topics to research, and really what we're hoping for is a couple people on each topic to go out there, do deeper dives into this, meet with the relevant staff members or department heads if necessary, ask the questions, get the history on it, so then they could go forward to the full committee and present their findings. And so alternates are welcome to do all of this research. The only thing with alternates is they can't vote on the final recommendations. So, Hannah, you can still contribute greatly to the committee, you just don't have a final vote unless I have somebody on the full commission end up resigning, and then one of the alternates would step up at that point. So, I'm gonna really give this back to the chairman if he wants to discuss with the commission the different available research topics. If you wanna go by the things laid out in the DLS report, it's up to you guys, and how you wanna divvy up the topics.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, and then I'll just
No, I
make
mean,
a general comment.
obviously Dudley isn't the first town to go through a government study committee, government study project. I think it might be helpful to have examples of others, just to see the methodology of how they approached it. I mean, I'm sure there are also organizations like the Collins Center who have done studies that may be available either directly through some of the staff there or online. I think it may be helpful to have that kind of as a guide, so we're not just trying to, kind of reinvent the wheel as to how to approach it. I mean, the information we may gather will obviously be different than town X and Y, but just in terms of a methodology, that might be helpful.
Absolutely, I can have some examples
Right.
for the next meeting.
Right. Yeah, my only additional comment was I don't know what I don't know, standing here, and I'd rather go after, a big fish and probably bang off a bunch of these, seems subject, sub areas maybe that are out, I don't know yet, right? The outline by John or the state, and I just don't know what I don't know, but all I'm saying is, I don't know what a charter is. I don't, is the DPW, these are large topics that could be, I'm more of the mindset to do a very large stroke rather than digging into individual areas. But I don't know enough right now. So if we're gonna start divvying up research topics, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. That's my feeling.
I would agree with you. As I was reading through the information and I was taking notes, I was thinking, this committee has been formed to do a service to our citizens. And there was one sentence in there, I don't have my copy with me with all the highlights, but there was one sentence in there and I wrote, well, what are the needs of the town that we are supposed to be serving? And I think it's gonna take us a little bit more time to read through this information, read through the recommendations, and really pull out and rank the priority of needs for the town, because we can't, 18 months, as I looked through the information, I thought, well, this isn't enough time. It's just not enough time to do a thorough job on what all 16 topics are asked.
Water and sewer is a needed resource in the town. Is that the highest priority? I mean, we're trying to do the Stephen Mill build out. I mean, they did it. So I'm just, is the town looking for ability to financially make us more fiscally solid, but giving us the ability to grow as a municipality, or are we just looking to be efficient? So to your point, just what does the town want, and how do we want to set it up so that we're focused, we're financially doing, or we're looking at the systems that set us up to be what the town wants.
I agree, and I think we answer those questions first, and from the answers to those questions, we develop what these areas of research would be.
Do we answer those questions by prioritizing the DLS report?
I think so.
Which is, can we interpret the DLS report as what the town wants us to approach at least?
You could.
Okay. Are we restricted to the DLS report?
No.
Okay.
But the formation of this committee was, I guess, instigated by the DOR report, essentially. I mean, I think it's an important point. Is that our starting point? Or is that just a piece of information to have?
Through the chair, that's a good point. It's up to the committee if you want to use the DLS report as your guiding document through at least the beginning of this process. Feel free, but if there's a topic that comes up, maybe it's not covered in the DLS report and you're interested in doing a deep dive, you think it's important and relevant to the committee's work, then you can absolutely look into that.
Olivia, the other point that, I think Cheryl, you mentioned we have 18 months. It's not 18 months, I don't think. Do we want something for the May town meeting?
So I only mentioned town meeting deadlines in case there's anything here that requires town meeting action. So we have our town meeting in October, and I highly doubt the committee's gonna have anything ready to go for our October special town meeting. So the next one would be May of 2026. After that would be October of 2026. So it's not necessarily a hard deadline. The committee must have their work wrapped up in time for the town meeting because that is under a year and it is a quick timeline. But if there was anything you were thinking of getting a town meeting vote for, keeping that timeline in mind.
So then, Mr. Chair, my belief would be that working off of the DLS report first would seem to be the priority. And not that anything else subsequent to the report would be of any lesser value. But my belief is that this is what the state is recommending the town change. And I think we should look at that and attack that first. And then subsequent to the other departments, how we can mold that into it.
I'd agree, unless, like Brian said, unless we discover something and there's some low-hanging fruit.
I agree.
And we just, shift a little
Yes.
bit and add that in. But, I mean, the issues have been identified for us, at least the most obvious ones, through the study. So we should use that.
Yeah, that's our starting point.
Yeah.
I think the only added point I would do is the water and sewer too. I researched for like 3 hours the other day how to solve that capping issue. There are some options to help with that.
Okay.
I would add that in because water in town would be nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's pull the DLS report out? Is that what you want to do, or?
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessary, but I thought maybe we could go around the table one more time and, introduce ourselves and kind of give a little bit of a background, just so we know. I mean, I don't think, maybe not everyone knows, Richard, that you're, the town administrator. Now they do, but maybe they didn't. And just to go around and kind of talk about who we are, what we do, and what we would like to bring to the committee. And maybe we start with you, Cheryl.
Sure, Cheryl Lito. I've got 35 years in construction, but that's not really why I'm here. I'm here because it's become very natural for me to just streamline processes. No matter what it is I'm doing, I'm always trying to find the most effective and efficient way to do it. And when people tell me a story or tell me information or ideas, I'm always making it work in my head. And when it doesn't make sense, I can notice it very quickly. And so I'm just bringing those talents as a rank and file citizen of Dudley to this committee.
Great. I'm Keith Gajewski. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Finance at Easter Seals in Massachusetts. We're a nonprofit, financially about the size of Dudley, who help people with disabilities. So I'm constantly, talking to people about how to build a program, how to make it work, how to work with the state. We get a lot of state funding, so there's a lot of back and forth with how to present information properly, how to interpret documents and things like that. I get involved with absolutely everything, so working with various groups at different levels is not a problem. And again, just to bring that expertise. Everybody has different expertise, so I think everything is applicable. So whether it's construction or business or something else.
Paul Konechner, lifelong resident of the community, recently retired from the town. I worked almost 40 years with the fire department, retiring off as the deputy fire chief. I also chair the capital improvement committee here for the community, so I do have some understanding of how local governments work. I'm not well educated on the municipal side for budgeting and finance. However, I am well credentialed within the fire service. I'm hoping some of that does correlate into what we are looking to do here.
I'm Hannah Ferris. I'm a project manager for National Grid, so I do electrical construction. I also, in my group, I basically meet everyone, I train everyone. I wrote about 500 pages worth of process documentation on how to do electrical work. I manage construction crews too. But I'm basically an IT tech nerd too, so I can troubleshoot almost all of our systems and all of that stuff, so I figured you might want a young person for the tech parts.
And I'm Rick LaFawn, I'm the town administrator in, where am I now? Webster?
Yes.
And I've been a town administrator, town manager since 1992. I've been in Webster a little over 3 years now. And I've worked in multiple forms of government. I've worked under charters, I've worked under legislative acts, I've worked under, for a couple of years under, I guess you'd call it a government structure. We'll call it a structure for now, similar to Dudley. So again, I've worked in various structures, so I mean, from an overall organizational standpoint, what I've seen that's been helpful, useful, effective, and what I've seen that isn't, I think I can bring some of that to the committee.
I'm Brian LeBrecq. I'm a resident here about 9 years. Where do I begin? I'm about a 35-year corporate guy that went, and I've always had small businesses. Probably one of the reasons why I'm here. I've had several small businesses as I've worked in corporate America, and then I went private or out of corporate America last year, and I'm continuing to grow one of my small businesses. But I got a lot of education, and I went to Nichols, got my MBA, and all that good stuff. But I like being busy. I like making change. I chaired the Economic Development Committee committee for the town of Dudley. And I feel pretty good about that. One of the first projects that we chaired was trying to get the Stephen Mills project off the ground, and I'm happy to see that indeed that project is moving forward for the town of Dudley. And so I'd like to make some positive change to the town, and when I was fortunate enough to see Olivia, seeking members, I see an opportunity to learn some of the finance side of the town, and in processes. I always worked in processes in engineering through my career, and I see this as an opportunity to look for more efficiencies and learn more about the town government, and keep pushing, right? You got to keep doing that and making a contribution to your community. So.
Rich Matthew. I've worked in municipal finance for 24 years, 4 years in the private sector with municipal software prior to that. I'm hoping that a little bit of that experience will be beneficial to the community and to the committee as we go forward and talk about what governance here in town is going to look like in the near future. Obviously, it's a topic that comes up once every 20 years or so I guess it's our turn.
That's right. Thank you. Maybe we'll jump out of order real quick before we if we're going to look at the report, before we get too tired. How often do we want to meet? Does anybody have any insight or opinions? Rick, do you have a committee of this sort? Do you think meeting every 2 weeks is too much, not enough, once a month?
Maybe in the beginning.
I think we'll put it, I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
To me, it's a matter of when. And, just from a selfish standpoint, selectmen in Webster meet once a month. So, obviously, avoiding the second Monday of the month.
I like Mondays, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Agree.
Yeah? Okay.
Everybody's good with Mondays, okay, we got
All right.
that hurdle.
So other than the second Mondays of the month, to me, twice a month on Mondays would be fine. And I guess as the committee goes forward, and I don't know what kind of, assignments or, the research, how it's broken up among members, whether that changes to less than twice a month, but I think your suggestion probably makes sense
Okay.
initially.
Is every other okay, or is it?
So, Mr. Chairman, July is going to be a little bit tricky because I actually have 3 selectmen's meetings in July. So if the committee's interested in continuing with Monday night meetings, you're always welcome to meet earlier than selectmen's meetings. Those start at 6:30. People usually start trickling in around 6. We've had evening meetings on Monday nights for other boards that start at 5:30. You would just have to be mindful of the 6:30 start time of the Board of Selectmen. So I also have all of my selectmen's meetings planned through the end of the calendar year. Could meetings get added here and there? Yes, this committee would just have to work around that because selectmen get priority. But the only open Monday night, if we wanted to meet at 6:30, would be July 21st. Because I have a Board of Selectmen meeting on July 7th, 14th, and 28th.
How early can people meet?
Yeah, that's an option too. I can meet, I can meet anytime.
4:15 is the
I know you
earliest
got
I
a
can.
little commute. right?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be able to meet before 5, but I think I can commit to 5 or, 5:15.
Yeah,
I can do that.
I could do 5.
I could do that.
Okay.
Okay, then,
So,
Mr. Chairman, that would provide us with more flexibility. If the committee wanted to meet at 5, you could do it on the same night as
Well, Rich
selectmen's
just said
meetings.
5:15.
Yeah, I think 5:15 would
Maybe,
be,
maybe if 5:30 would probably be more fair to,
Yeah.
you said the board meets here at 6:30, so.
Yes.
Which it doesn't bother me to have,
Firm stop.
Firm
A firm
yeah,
stop
it
time,
doesn't-
right.
It doesn't bother me, and it certainly helps chairman.
We have to clear out the room. We can't stay until 6:30.
This is your only meeting room.
We also have 315, but it's not really great for boards with multiple members like us. That's better for our smaller boards with maybe only 5 members or so. So, Mr. Chairman, this is just an idea. We could have our usual meeting time be 6:30, and on nights where there happened to be a selectmen's meeting, we could make it 5:30. If that's too confusing for the committee, we could just stick with 5:30 going forward. It's up to you all.
I like 5:30.
I like 5:30.
On a permanent basis for every meeting?
Personally, I think, I
Yeah,
like that earlier the better.
Yeah, the
As long
less
as
juggling
Rich-
around.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
Rich can make it.
yeah, again, I should be, in town by
5:30.
5:15 at the latest, so.
I'm retired, yes.
It might,
Nothing to do. It
how
could be AM.
small is that room? You're talking
I've been in
about-
that room, it might fit this, no?
I mean,
Amanda, do you know how many seats
Maybe
315
something to look
has?
It's in a U shape, so you can fit 4 in the back and 2 comfortably on the sides, 3 at max. So you could
Well,
fit
look
7
at it.
in
So, I mean, we can always take a field trip down there after the
Yeah,
meeting and
that's
scope it
probably a
out.
good
That's certainly possible. It just has a lot less space for any sort of people coming in if we end up bringing in, through the chair, department heads or subject matter experts. It's got a lot less space
Yeah.
for deliberation, a lot less seating for audience members.
But we would only use that room if we couldn't use this one.
And again, that would be up to the committee if you wanted 315 to be your permanent home, or you wanted to only go in there on selectmen nights. It's up to you all. It's just, this is usually the default room for committees.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
maybe we should take a look at it when we're on the way out of here.
This is a much better room,
Yeah, well,
much more conducive to,
yeah.
You've been in both.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next meeting will be July 21st, or
Again,
not.
Or not, Mr. Chairman. If you don't mind meeting the same nights as selectmen, it can be whatever Monday night the board chooses. That's just my next non-selectmen meeting night, but I
Well,
can
what's-
do both boards, no problem.
What's the date on 2 weeks from today? We'll just go every 2 weeks.
June 4th, July 14th.
I can't
Can
do
you
the
do that?
I can't do the 14th.
You can't do the
That's
14th?
I don't know if you want to do every other week or pick, like, I like the first and third, or
Oh, just 2
yeah,
per month.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
That's
okay.
just
Yeah, yeah.
easier for everybody knows, you don't have to.
All right.
So seeing how they
Oh, I
land, so
see.
if you go
Yeah, yeah.
like first and third or
Mhm.
whatever.
So what have we?
Olivia, what are the open Mondays?
Uh,
Opposite of selectmen's?
Through the chair, if we did first and third, that might actually work well. So I've got July 14th and 28th booked, so doing first and third would avoid that. I also have July 7th, but that's not regularly scheduled. I have August 11th and August 25th, September 8th and September 22nd, October 6th and the 20th, November 3rd and 17th, and then December 1st, 15th, and 29th.
I might have a conflict on.
Are any of those dates affected by the Monday holidays?
No, all of those selectmen dates are on non-Monday holidays, taking into account Labor Day, Columbus Day, and
Sweet.
I don't know if Veterans Day is a Monday this year.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, you ran through that real fast, Olivia.
I can go slower.
Too fast for me too. All right.
All right, so I can.
Let's start with July.
July. So in July, Mr. Chairman, I have a selectmen's meeting at 6:30 in this room on July 7th, July 14th, and July 28th.
I can do July 21st
I can
right now.
do that, yeah. Especially on the earlier side.
It looks
So
like-
it would be longer to our next meeting, but if we can go through the DLS report and start to divvy up some work, that would give us a little more time to do some research. So let's do July 21st.
At
In this
5:30.
room, at 5:30.
5:30.
721, 5:30, room 321A. Okay,
All right, Mr. Chairman, are you ready for August?
yes.
August, my current selectmen's meetings are on August 11th and August 25th.
So then do we do two meetings on August 4th and 18th?
Nobody's gonna like this, Mr. Chairman, but I would suggest that we do schedule 2 meetings for August. We're kind of like at a kickoff meeting here,
Mhm.
so we may want to meet a little bit, like we discussed earlier, may meet early, meet more often early within the structure of the committee.
I
You know,
don't
we can kind of
disagree.
like, you know, maybe hopefully month it out afterwards. If anybody has different thinking, or,
Are we good on the 4th and 18th?
I can begin the earlier the better on the 4th for me.
Okay.
So the 4th is at 5:30, right? We're just gonna keep 5:30.
they're all at 5:30?
Yeah, we'll just move it to 5:30.
So theoretically, we could get a quick 1-hour meeting in, theoretically speaking, if there's a selectmen's meeting on that day.
Yes.
I think we'll probably have a better idea of whether or not we're gonna need that after the meeting on the 21st, and most especially after the first meeting on August 4th. You know, again, I think, yes, you wanna front-load this type of committee with meetings up front. Having a short meeting may have a benefit, you know, if there's a specific topic or specific item that we're researching, but again, because we're new, because we're trying to figure out what our actual aim and goal is, to start, having a little more time and not being rushed, I think would be very beneficial.
What about, are there other municipal buildings available for meetings?
Library's the only other one where you won't be recorded.
Correct. So libraries available, I would have to work around their schedule. We don't typically recommend meetings be in there. There's no way we can record those meetings or broadcast them. So 321 and 315 are the only two.
How sacred is broadcasting the meetings? I'm just curious.
For transparency purposes, through the chair, we do try to record every meeting that we can. It's subject to the availability of our camera operators, and at this time, we only have 2. So it is subject to availability, but I would highly recommend we stick in either 321 or 315 down the hall.
And what about remote meetings or hybrid meetings? Is that something that people have participated in or thought about?
Yeah, I mean, we've held them through COVID, we did that, so.
Through the chair, I'm not really aware of any board that's currently meeting fully remotely. We do allow some participants to either call in via phone or attend via Zoom, but we try to have all of our meetings
Yeah.
based here in person.
Yeah, all right.
And that's also makes it easier for members of the public to attend as well.
So August is the 4th and the 25th.
4th and 18th.
Oh, 4th and 18th, I'm glad.
4th and
I asked.
18th.
4th and 18th, if you're trying to be off the selectmen weeks.
First and third.
Yeah.
Okay.
September.
September, Mr. Chairman, my selectmen are meeting on September 8th and September 22nd. I believe September 1st is Labor Day.
It is. So we'll do the 15th and the 29th.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
So as a course of duty, if we do have a conflict, which I already have one, do we just notify the alternator, correct?
So, Mr. Chairman, alternates don't step up in terms of one full member missing a meeting. Alternates would step up if a full member happened to resign for whatever reason. So, like I said earlier, alternates can still research and contribute greatly, they just can't vote. So if you are unable to attend a meeting, please email me directly. I just keep a mental track and make sure that we still have enough members attending for
Right.
quorum purposes. But if anybody is sick or on vacation, can't attend, I just need to make sure I have at least 4 of the full voting members here for a quorum.
October.
October, Mr. Chairman, so October 6th, I have a selectmen's meeting, and October 20th as well. We haven't officially voted, or I should say the selectmen haven't officially voted the date of special town meeting. It's tentatively October 20th, but it could also possibly occur on October 27th. So I'm not sure if we're still interested in meeting twice a month by the time October rolls around, or if that's when the committee might be interested in moving to once a month, or we don't have to schedule that far out at this point.
I
Maybe
think that's probably,
once I have a better idea of my
Yeah.
town meeting schedule,
yeah, and once we have a better idea of,
Okay.
wait, selectmen meet a lot.
every other week,
Yeah.
except in July, it's 3 times.
We meet more in the summer?
Usually not. Through the chair, it's just
For
a.
suggestion?
Well, I think we stumbled across one of the problems.
We can fix that.
It's just a certain agenda item
know,
that's prompting us to have a meeting outside of our usual schedule, but
All
Yeah.
right, so we're scheduled through September.
Do we have to set the schedule through a motion and a vote?
you could.
Would anyone entertain a motion to, well, I'll just read them off. We're going to meet at 5:30 in this room, unless otherwise, well, no, we can meet in this room on those days.
I would say so,
At
yes.
5:30 in this room on July 21st, August 4th, August 18th, September 15th, and September 29th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, perfect.
Mr. Chairman, I will just note, unless otherwise posted.
Unless otherwise posted.
For whatever reason, the room is under construction or,
And changes might,
Who knows?
there might be changes in any of these as we go along, but just so we know.
And as we get closer as we get more into the September timeframe, we'll assess whether or not we need bi-weekly or weekly or monthly meetings or whatever. Perfect. All right, wonderful.
I do think you might want to give some thought or do a little homework on the open meeting law requirements as they
Right.
pertain to subcommittees.
excellent point. So, Mr. Chairman, I actually discussed this with legal counsel. And it sort of gets tricky with open meeting law requirements and referring to yourselves as either a subcommittee or a working group. We're staying away from that. Once the committee decides to divvy up research topics, for example, if 2 of you are researching the same topic, that's fine, but you can't then call yourselves the subcommittee to address the DPW or the working group for the DPW if that's a topic you all decide to pursue. We're gonna stay away from using that language. You would just happen to be researching that topic. And if 2 of you wanted to get together and share ideas with one another, that's not necessarily breaking open meeting law because it's not quorum. But still presenting your full findings to the group. Any votes obviously occur at this full meeting here, but just not calling yourselves the working group to explore, whatever topic.
Basically, if you are specifically appointed by a board as a subcommittee, that subcommittee is subject to the open meeting law.
Right.
Which
is a lot. When you talk about a two-person subcommittee, we have to post, we have to keep, I mean, it's a lot,
Mhm.
you know, it's a lot, so thank you for clarifying that, it's helpful,
Thank you for bringing it up.
yeah.
Olivia, do we have any, what would be the best way for us to share information? Two people might be working on a particular topic, they may see an article, they want to send somebody a link. Do we have to retain, I mean, obviously, some of that would probably be retained as, well, I have another question about the end result of all this. But would we keep that ourselves? Can we have a common, I don't know what you guys use, but like a Google Drive or some sort of something we can store this stuff online so we all have access to it? Is that admissible?
Excellent point. So my budget, or the town's budget I should say, resets tomorrow. So once I have money, I will be able to get you all town-issued email addresses, so we don't have to subject your personal emails to any of the information we're going to be discussing here. And Amanda, would they be able to do sort of like a shared OneDrive situation if they all had
Yeah, they'll
town
have
emails?
OneDrive, they'll have the Office.
Perfect.
365.
Great, so you'll all have Office 365 and you'll all have access to OneDrive, so we could do sort of a shared folder where we have this information digitally as well. If the board prefers their information digital, if you still like the binders, we can do both. But in terms of, Mr. Chairman, if you were to email the vice chair a link to an article, you would go on your town email the vice chair's town email and say, hey, I found this cool article, you should probably check it out, might help with your research. And then if there's any sort of public records requests, we would be able to really easily access that because it's coming from your town email.
Sure. Okay, that's great.
Oh, that is good.
I think that'll be very helpful. I see this, I don't know about other boards, but we're doing a lot. I see this as a big research project, right? I mean, it's like a capstone project for a master's class or something, right? So, and those could
Really
be
is.
100 pages long at least, so there's gonna be a lot of research. It'd be nice to retain that research, to have the backup to say, look, here's the reasons.
So I assume, Olivia, you're gonna be the clearinghouse though, in terms of, I mean, I think everybody knows that, emails, can't be shared other than for basics, like what time are we meeting, for the most part. So if we have information that we want the committee to have,
Yes.
that should go through you directly.
If there's information or any communications that you want to do, I would recommend emailing myself, and you can copy the chair and the vice chair. It's only
That's
two of them
fine.
at that point, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. If you would like something to be specifically discussed on the agenda, that's the chairman's call on whether or not he would like that placed on the agenda. And so if you want to email the chair and myself, it'll be Mr. Gajewski's final call on whether or not that's included on the agenda. But please do not reply all to emails. That's when we start to violate open meeting laws.
Right.
The last thing I need is all 7 or 8 of you deliberating on a topic by replying all to an email thread. I will have to shut that down like immediately. That
Absolutely.
is
But good, so
not
you're,
allowed.
but again, you are the main clearinghouse. That,
Yes.
again, just wanna make sure that I'm aware. Okay, it's good. Thank
Yep,
you.
I'll be handling through the chair all of the sort of administrative background work, working closely with the chair and the vice chair on
Sure,
this.
well, that's what I'm saying,
Yep.
we work with you, you work with the chair, and again, vice chair, and let's.
Keep it clean.
You're right, because let's face it, how often would we even, usually when you're replying all, it's completely unnecessary, because you're basically saying, okay, we can meet at 7 o'clock on a, I mean, that's the only time you would ever do that anyway, so. Okay, well, again, I just want to know the rules.
Yep.
You are the go-to. All right.
Okay, wonderful. So now I guess maybe we should hit the DLS report and kind of start perusing that. And I don't know what everybody thinks. I mean, if there's a topic in the DLS that you really favor or understand or are interested in, probably speak up about it, and we can start to maybe define who's working on what.
Mr. Chairman,
I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
I think I would like to
You can borrow mine. I brought my laptop.
step up and say that I will reach out to the Collins Center to see, and that's an excellent thought, to see if they have any examples of past committees that have tackled something such as this, so we can then have eyes on maybe a solution, or at least a step in the right direction, so I can take that and run with it. Hopefully the Collins Center is able to either provide us some information or steer us in the direction where we can get it.
Could you, just for those of us who don't know, say what this Collins Center is?
You're more familiar with this, but the Collins Center is a
They're,
think tank, I'll call it.
They are part of the United UMass Institute, University of Massachusetts. The Collins Center is an institute. They do research. They do municipal projects. They do research specifically for municipalities and larger government services. Not so much at the state level, but not in a lobbying fashion per se, but they provide, again, municipal insight. But I've used them over the years with various, like, personnel studies, and things like that. So this is most of their staff, former local government professionals. So very, very familiar with the terrain.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, so going off of what Mr. LaFawn said about the Collins Center, they have done a couple different research reports for the town, and those are forthcoming. That will be in either, I think, Section 3 or Section 4. So I should have that material prepped for our July 21st meeting.
And what have they done, Olivia? What projects have they done?
Ooh, through the chair, off the top of my head, I think that they've done some stuff related to like HR and personnel, that side of things. I don't want to, misspeak without being 100% sure of the reports that they've done, but for the next meeting, I'll have those printed and prepared.
Okay.
Okay. Who doesn't have a DLS report?
I don't have one at the moment.
I have one, but not at the moment.
All right, so we can look on it. That's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
So as we look at issue number 1, of course, they do the community profile, and there's lots of interesting information there. We get to the first item, which is on page 10? Yeah.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, there's also a very convenient table of contents.
Yep.
Looks like it's on page 5, 6, 5. If you wanted to go by that as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Okay. So the first item is to discontinue the use of reserves and one-time revenues for the operational budget.
Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Sounds like
For
it.
the accountants.
But it is obviously easier said than done during very difficult financial times.
More of a financial, maybe like a more financial background, what type of person would be best suited to maybe research that project, in your opinion?
Well, I guess, what is it that needs to be researched here in this particular one? I guess that's my,
So, through the chair, that's, some of these topics are, I think, less, for lack of a better term, beefy than the other topics.
this isn't organizational, this is just
the town continues to use things like our stabilization fund, free cash, and capital improvement stabilization to fund one-time revenues for the operating budget, and that's not great financial practice to do. So, I mean, whoever researches this could look into alternatives, could look into why we continue to do that, if there are other sources in the budget to fund that, which...
Yeah, I'm hesitant to tell you how to, what's in your budget, but I do think it wouldn't be bad. Do you have financial policies?
Some financial policies, and I think that's actually another recommendation of this report is to
Update
I
those.
think that's part and parcel
formal
of
financial
that.
policies.
Yeah.
So we can
So-
get some, I can get some examples of
Rich.
And realistically, they're fairly standard, you know, your good recommended financial policies. Department of Revenue has them, you know, so you don't have to go looking far, but it would probably be good to have an example or two of what your bond agencies, you know, the Department of Revenue would agree are good sound financial policies. It doesn't keep you when you're trying to keep, you know, firemen from saving babies, okay, because you can't guess what? People don't put money in the bank, you know, in your stabilization, so you can make interest. Well, people aren't getting services, so you've got to deal with both the financial and the philosophical pieces there too. So it's not as simple as, you know, of course you're not supposed to use one-time revenue, but I do think financial policies might be helpful.
That's number 7.
Okay, cool.
So my question for the committee is, has everybody gone through this and read the 16 bullet points? All right, good.
Mr. Chairman, I will add on to the discussion of the financial policies. So I know that that's something our town accountant has been looking for, communicating with DOR and getting examples from other towns. And I believe that the town accountant and our treasurer collector recently went to a workshop where it was hosted by DOR, and it was specifically for towns trying to create financial policies that they don't have and the implementation process of that. So it is in the works, but are they, you know, officially adopted yet? No.
Okay. We may not be able to assign these at this point. Why don't we read through them? And I think this discussion was great, right? So we're getting a little bit of, you know, technical expertise, maybe some other outside research. Let's go through them.
And I think inside the 16 points, there's probably 3 different buckets that they all fall into.
Yes.
So I think, you know, coming up with, okay, personnel management, town management, finances are probably the 3, you know, buckets that I see, but, you know, you can call them differently.
Number 1 is
with the title.
definitely financial.
It's number 1 right here, just discontinue use of reserves and one-time revenues. Absolutely. So, and I think what we can do is, you know, as we talk about them tonight and when we get back together next time, hopefully people will kind of gravitate towards one column, one bucket or the other, and we'll have some, you know, division of labor of what we're looking at and how we're approaching this.
Number 2, convert the elected treasurer and collector position to an appointed position.
I read a state thing that said that 88% of Massachusetts, it says it right there, that they have that. I don't know if you want to research that, but it just sounds like a good idea.
Well, I guess the only question would be, why wouldn't you want, you know, a particular resume for a financial job? I mean, that's more of a, this is more of a why not question, I think, than a why question, but still, that's not for tonight, I know.
Who does the appointment?
The treasurer collector through the chair is currently elected.
No, I understand that, but who would
do the appointment?
Who would do the appointment?
Well, I think that's part of what ultimately
Maybe that we
the recommendation
recommend.
is. Is it a board, is it a town administrator, is it?
Part of the research, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not sharing
That's
very
okay.
well. But so, geez, Rick, what category, what were the 3 that you came up with?
Well, again, let's just go through them. Let's
All right.
you know, just have a general. I think there's a natural
There might be.
delineation between these bullet points.
Number 3's done.
Yeah, there you go.
Sweet.
Right.
Cross that off.
Exactly.
We're here.
All right. We're making some headway here.
Yeah. Number 4, resolve state and local fiscal recovery funds compliance report.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to check with our town accountant on the status of this, but basically there's a certain portal that the U.S. Department of the Treasury opens up, and the portals only open a certain time frame every year. And this was a very brief putting a dollar amount in the wrong box, I believe, sort of thing from a previous year's report, and you can't go in and correct it until the portal's open. And I don't know if the portal has opened up yet or if it's been completed, but I think a big issue with that was the login for it, and reaching somebody at the federal level to help us with our login problems. So I can definitely get an update from Sarah on the status of number 4.
Can I also point out that I think some of these are tasks?
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that I think is really,
The whole research area.
Yeah.
that's right, it's like, okay, do it. Someone's doing it, like, Olivia said.
We would not be worried about number 4.
That's right, again, somebody needs to be doing their job, and that's
Right.
not our job to supervise somebody
Right.
doing their job, so.
Yeah, point taken. Number 5, codify financial team in a bylaw. Is there any movement on that issue?
So, Mr. Chairman, we have created an internal finance team, and that membership is comprised of the town administrator, myself, the treasurer collector, the town accountant, and our assessor. And we do meet, right now we're meeting every other week to discuss the financial stuff. It was actually very helpful in making sure we were all on the same page for this year's budget discussions before things were presented to the selectmen and the FAA. Have we codified them in a bylaw? No, not yet. But if that's something that the committee recommends we do, it's up to you all to find out.
Rick, what is the consequence, or what is the by codifying something in a bylaw, what does that mean?
Well, not much if you don't have an authority who can make it happen.
Whose responsibility, if that was codified as a bylaw, whose responsibility is it to make sure that they meet and that they do something?
Well, that's the organizational piece.
Okay.
That's, I think that's probably the bigger concern in general, is how the organizational structure gets these things done. So, a bylaw is wonderful if somebody is required to enforce the bylaws. It's been, especially, as we know, when you have an elected officials as part of a finance team, well, there's nobody to, who
Okay.
can require somebody to do something, so,
There's one elected official on that committee.
Yes.
yeah. So, I'm not saying that's good, bad, or otherwise, but it does make, a bylaw is nice, but how do you make a nice bylaw effective?
Right. So this might definitely be one we pursue.
I would agree, yeah.
Question?
Yes.
In this financial team, is there a finance director role that anybody is filling? Officially?
No,
Okay, thank you.
no. Through the chair, the town does not have a finance director. We have a town accountant and a treasurer collector.
Work very collaboratively.
Yes.
Yes.
Olivia, who's on that team, did you say?
Town administrator, which is Jonathan Ruda, assistant town administrator, me. The town accountant is Sarah Monjo, treasurer collector is Richard Carmignani, and our assessor is Lisa Berg.
Thank you.
So ideally, there'd be a school official on there, but I know you've got a regional school district, it's a little bit, I don't know how easy it is, or, I'm not sure, Rich, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. I mean, in my experience, you always have your school superintendent or business manager on your financial team, but I haven't worked with a regional school district similar to this.
Yeah, certainly in Webster's situation with the school being a department of the town, absolutely, you'd want your school business manager there. I know I was invited, when I was finance director at Dudley Charlton, I was invited in for numerous financial conversations. And I suspect that would continue to be the practice here, as budget season rolls around and all of that. But, again, codifying it, in some form or fashion isn't necessarily a bad idea. But in the various regional school districts I've worked in, there hasn't been an official role for the school
Sure.
business official, on the town side, other than, normal presentation of budgets.
Okay. Number 6, create a budget bylaw. We recommend that the Select Board, FAA, and Town Administrator develop a bylaw that codifies the budget process. Again, sounds like a good thing, but what type of movement or opinions does Town Administration have about that?
So, Mr. Chairman, right now we do follow pretty similar to this process in terms of, we start reaching out to department heads in, I think, early January and saying, it's time to start thinking about your next fiscal year's budget. We go through a pretty standard process every year. It's just nothing that's been codified. Department heads would then meet with the town administrator to go over their requests. The town administrator would make his final recommendations, present that to the Board of Selectmen and the FAA during a joint meeting, sort of like during budget hearings, and have those department heads there to answer any questions. And then the Board of Selectmen and FAA can change those recommendations if they'd like. We can get more into that. I can sort of get like a rundown of how we follow that process, but it is pretty similar to what's laid out here in the DLS report. It's just not codified.
You're doing it, it's just not
I
codified.
was
Again,
gonna
it's
say,
like,
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
I-
If there's no bylaw, then nothing changes, but if there's a bylaw, nothing changes. It still follows the same format, starting in December, give us your wants and asks, and then you start the review process. What would change?
with or without a bylaw, you need
With or
those
with
things.
a-
Yeah, well,
Right.
from what I've
Right.
seen and lived within is very specific, dates, time frames.
Okay.
This needs to be done by this date.
Okay.
Do we have that
This
in
needs to be
place as
done
far as
by this
dates and
date.
that, or is it kind of ambiguous?
Through the chair, it is official yet unofficial at the same time. The town administrator will send out a memo at the beginning of the budget cycle that outlines dates and times of deadlines. I want to have your budget submitted by here. I want to have departmental hearings at this selectmen's meeting and this selectmen's meeting. So there are dates laid out, but that's about as
But I guess,
official
Mr.
as we
Chair,
get.
that just because you have an efficient town administrator currently, does not necessarily mean that the next one is going to do it, in a different manner.
Yeah.
At least to have something to follow that's more of a standard across
This is
whoever
a low-
sits in our
This is a
position.
low-lying fruit. You can,
Yeah, I
you
agree.
can just do it, get it
I
done,
agree.
check, it's, hey, look at town Dudley.
I'm
we've
assuming
done
though that, what you're doing here from a time frame is based upon the necessity of when the fiscal year begins, new town meeting. But in terms of, again, to your point, Paul, codifying, when budgets are due to whom. When the town administrator is required to submit it to the finance committee, and, or if there's a specific, there's something, specific requirement for the finance committee to do something by a certain time. Those kinds of things, and it's not that you're not already perhaps doing them,
Right.
but to your point, Paul, it doesn't, there's nothing that requires you to do it, so to have some codification and then some authority who can enforce it, I think that's helpful, even if you're kind of already doing it. Just my thoughts.
Yep.
Number 7, adopt formal financial policies. And there are a lot of different policies that they are recommending in their bullets. I think probably some of those are being done.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of what I talked about earlier, and I can certainly get an update from our town accountant as to the status of some of these policies, where they are in terms of readiness for adoption, and what she learned from that workshop that she attended.
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, if I could just, I would hope that we already are following most, if not all, of these recommendations, whether they are official or not. But being the state put them into the report, I'm presuming that we don't have many, if any, actually put to writing.
it does say a complete, it did not maintain a
Right.
complete or of documented policies, so you're right, maybe they're doing
I
it.
just think I think they're following what's
Mhm.
best practices, but it's just not in writing.
Documented, yes.
When's the last time you did a debt issuance here? Because usually when you do that, these policies, whether it's S&P or Moody's, they're specifically looking for these documents and policies. So I'm just curious when the last time you've done something, because these can be big deals in terms of your bond rating.
That is a good question, and I don't know the exact status of to that, so I
Okay.
can get back to you at the next meeting. So last time we did a debt issuance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, right.
September of '24.
I'll be darned. Okay. It's okay.
The voice from beyond.
I was doing my best just to listen.
That's
but-
okay. Because there would be a bond prospectus, okay, that, and a bond rating
Right.
document that may tell you such things.
I'll introduce myself, Rich Carmignani, treasurer collector. I was supposed to take the role of church mouse and listen, and anyway, for the sake of moving everything forward, we had a serial note for, in September of '24, there's probably 2 SRF loans out there. We had a rating in June of '23. We had it updated this month with S&P. Collection of a handful of things, but no real review of absolutely everything. We were put on a negative watch, and they needed to take an action, so it was 24 months high. We had enough things pointing in the right direction, so they took us off the negative watch, but it's still was a AA minus rating. I just had a notebook and a few little items here. I wasn't really prepared to speak, but
Before you go away, Rich, Olivia, I have a question. These also might come up in just your normal financial audit, your yearly audit. Were these ever, who's the firm again that does the audit?
Scanlon.
Scanlon? Have they ever noted that you lack these policies?
That I would have to double check.
Okay.
I wouldn't speak for a CPA firm, but they're running their tests, making sure that the town is in compliance with things. They'll, whatever the flavor of the period is going to be, if we've reacted to any changes, go through, are we still investing our trust funds, under Chapter 44, or have we adopted 203C and going to a prudent investor rule? Are we marking things to market? Little things like that. Other than marking a deficiency or it being a hot button issue, I think the internal management is sort of left to the management.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. Number 8, maintain revenue and expenditure forecast. Olivia.
Mr. Chairman, so on this one, I would again have to talk to Sarah about, I believe we've been starting to put numbers into our revenue and expenditure forecast, just to try to get an idea for the next couple years. But keeping that up to date, I'm not sure where we are in the status of that. And it looks like Rich is getting back up.
I'm sorry. It's live. Pre-COVID, you had the Abrahams Group put together something. It would have been very close to the 18 override that was put together, and the whole idea was you would almost anticipate your next override given sort of the limitations. Route 20 doesn't pass through Dudley. Webster's fortunate enough to have a few exits off the highway and a few other items, so Dudley was going to have that as a workaround. You knew historically what your previous 5 years were, and some modest assumptions for maybe a year or two out. You'd also know when your debt. All of those items have been updated, at least previous revenue a year going forward as far as receipts go, and almost budget to actual. Sarah Monjo was the one that sort of resurrected that worksheet tool, and those pieces were cut off for the more recent review. Wasn't the ratings call, but it was the ratings sort of review. So those are in place. Not all of them, and I think this was sort of done in response to any questions that S&P may have had, not necessarily responding to a DLS report.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is what this is perhaps talking about, is having an ongoing, annually updated 5-year revenue expenditure forecast.
Okay.
So,
5 years?
usually 5 years. Now, obviously,
Not that long from what you just said.
but it's an annual,
So,
annually updated
Okay.
5-year, which is a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool,
but-
right.
But it's helpful. It's a
Sure.
tool. As long as you know what you're looking at.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
And there's enough models out there,
Mhm.
too, for, and it's always good just to steal someone else's.
Why not?
Works out real well.
Absolutely.
We got a good one.
Why not? Review revolving funds, number 9.
So, Mr. Chairman, Sarah, our town accountant, has also been really reviewing our revolving funds, making sure that she understands the purpose for each one. So I should add some background info. Sarah started in this position just about a year ago, so she is relatively new to this department here. And so she's going through all of our revolving funds, making sure that she understands when we do have money in, is it supposed to go to a certain revolving fund? Is it going to the general fund? Making that distinction, making sure that that's communicated to anybody who's doing those turnovers. So you would have either department heads or staff members. For example, if I receive revenue into my office for cemetery-related things, because I'm the cemetery clerk,
So a revolving fund is revenue that's kind of earmarked for something specific.
comes in and out. I do have a cemetery revolving fund, for example, and that's for money that I would receive as part of either a burial or the purchase of a cemetery lot. Some of that gets put into a revolving fund, and then we can use that money for things like repairs in our cemetery or equipment to keep the cemetery maintained, for example. And there's plenty of other revolving funds that we have, so she's making sure she's got a good understanding of that, making sure it's cleaned up and making sure that all of the account numbers are labeled correctly, so there's no confusion going forward. So that is in progress.
Are there many of them?
Many revolving funds, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we do have, I would say, a good amount, and they're all for different purposes.
Okay. Does it become a burden to account for all those?
It's a good point, though, do you need all the revolving funds that you have?
Okay.
Because obviously your revolving funds keep dollars out of the general fund,
Mhm.
so, and you
Okay.
may need more. I don't know, but I think that in itself is probably something good to look at.
Okay. Number 10, prioritize the Harper payroll self-serve implementation.
Mr. Chairman, so that is getting into a more digital process for entering employee time and attendance information. Right now, we work off of paper sheets that are then manually inputted by the accounting office and then by the treasurer collector's office every Monday morning. And so this would digitize it and allow employees to enter their time into an online system and have the supervisor.
And you do that weekly?
We do that weekly.
Oh, my God.
Weekly.
Talk about a saving.
1992 is walking through that door.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
That's a low lying fruit, huh?
yeah, for
Wait.
example, with my department, I go through any of the employees on the town administrator department payroll. I go in, I say, Olivia worked 32 regular hours this week and she took 8 vacation hours. And I write that on the spreadsheet, we print it out, sign it, goes to Sarah's office, she inputs it. Once the town accountant's office is taking care of that, goes down to the treasurer collector's office, they input it, it runs every week. So this would be moving to a digital process where the employee would actually be driving a lot of the process. The employee would go in and say, You know, for example, Michelle here, I'm technically her supervisor, so she'd go in and say, well, I worked 12 hours this week, and that's what she'd submit. It'd come across my table, I'd say, yeah, Michelle worked 12 hours, approve.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
But this is a task, though.
Yeah.
This
This is a task.
This is also being sort of monitored by one of our selectmen. Janet DeShane has sort of taken it upon herself to be the person to continue pursuing the implementation because it was stalled for a bit.
We've been doing this for a while.
For several years,
yeah.
the
It's
process was
This has been-
stalled,
At a
so.
recent meeting, they said it was up to 4 years that they've been working on this.
Yeah, I believe it's an agenda item for the next selectmen's meeting, and that she's the point person on that, so I could certainly coordinate her to come in and give an update to the committee if that's what they'd be
Yeah.
interested in
Well,
at
again,
some
How
I
point.
far out is this realistically going to be implemented? I mean, is there still a lot of work that needs to be done, or?
What's the problem?
Well, can I
Maybe raise a possible issue here?
is that this is just a task. This isn't a big policy, decision or study. I wouldn't surprise me if this is a matter of who has authority to do something and hold someone accountable. That's just my guess. You don't have to answer that. I'm just a guess on
Well, the fund's been earmarked for this? Has this been funded?
Yes.
And it's somebody doesn't want it.
But there's efficiencies to be had by doing it electronically,
Oh, absolutely.
obviously.
Clearly.
Yes.
A lot.
And moving to a bi-weekly payroll, or sticking with weekly?
Moving to a bi-weekly payroll, so Mr. Chairman, that's number 11 here. It's already been pre-negotiated, I believe, with every union that we have here in town, that when we do move to bi-weekly payroll, we would just have to give them a bit of advance notice.
Is 90 days or something
I
is a
think
requirement?
it is 90
Yeah,
days
right.
for
So
our
you've already got
unions
that
here.
in contracts.
So it's already in
Oh, that's
contracts,
good.
and
Great.
at this point, it's just, when do we choose to implement it?
Yeah.
And this would be electronic, so employees would know how much vacation or whatever you call it, sick days, the system would accrue that and they would have access to that information.
Correct, yep.
Do they have to they have to ask how many days I have off now, or?
Right now, Mr. Chairman, it gets printed out on the pay stubs that are paper copies given to us every Thursday. And whether or not employees choose to open up those pay stubs and look at their accrued balances, that's where it lists it.
How do you process, Harper's processes the payroll now, but you do it manually
It's all manually entered
through Harper's?
through Harper's.
So you're just implementing the automated side of Harper's?
The employee self-service
The
function.
self-service, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I've done that before. Well, that's great. I mean, the bi-weekly, that's automatically saves you money. 'Cause you're just doing it half as much as you were. So it's,
And if you've got the labor issue is the biggest issue.
Oh, yeah,
So-
right,
So
yeah.
good for you having that solved.
yeah. Okay, number 12, modify the cash book. I think we may need a little background here.
This, I would actually defer to Rich if he chooses to speak about it tonight. If he'd rather not, oh, he's getting up.
I get paid monthly. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
If I'm being invited up,
Yeah.
of course. So, the original rollout
Yeah.
was May of '22 for Vadar Systems. Treasurer Collector was the first on board. And
ADAR is the accounting system you use?
right, we had some fractured systems, raised my hand and said, let's bring this on. And it is a suite, so it is accounting, utilities, taxation. It's the digital solution, including the import and export from Harper's. When things started, it was very much a fractured process because only the collector's receivables were on, and the accounting unit wasn't started until a year and a half later. So right now, your cash book is 90% set up, and it's a matter of closing out this fiscal year to sort of get that clean cutoff because your bank accounts are already in, your interest posting. I have the ability to import things digitally, and it's a matter of getting that clean cutoff to start things moving through. Because right now, all of your checks are done through Vadar. It was sort of maybe that half 24 year where there was catch-up to try to get things up and running, and the beginning of last year still had the old accountant, so Sarah and I are refining the last bit of the process.
How far along is this process, percentage-wise? Is it nearly done?
It was 90% done by that, maybe the first 30 days we started Vadar. The cash book is in place. It's just not up and tied to the statements. You put in your beginning balances and you're posting individual interests, and it's just a matter of clearing out your checks as you run them. So everything is in place. The process was in place for that first month. Best example being if you go through and you are taking online payments in the collector's office, the old system just had a numerical identifier. So it's a matter of this bank account only has this group of turnovers, and they cycle through. So really, we were doing this before it was even called for. It's just a matter of getting the cutoff together. Or you wouldn't be memorializing transactions in it per se, but we've done that before, and it's good to go. It's just a matter of getting that clean cutoff. Other questions? No.
And the advantage is that it reconciles everything in and of
Yes.
itself, right? Is that?
Yes. I still reserve the right to go through and reconcile the AP checks and what have you. It's just the double check. I can't mail that in. You're still going through and auditing things. But in the automated sense, yes, we'd be doing that. I also have the test for all of your trusts, because we'll have a host account and then 30, 40 sub-accounts for all of your trusts. I have that import ready to go when we're good to do that. So it's a matter of picking the time, getting that to jive. If you want, I'll talk about the tax title as well. Was there a 10-year-old sheet back there? The tax title ties to Vadar, it ties to the paper sheets, and it ties to the Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet has an end date. So if you were to look into my host drive, you'd be able to find 6/30/2012. And the balance on the general ledger ties to ties to your audit. So more recently, if you ran a 6/30/23, I'd be able to pull that up. It matches to what's in Vadar as well as the audit. So everything is tied out. What I'm guessing might be an error would be a copy and paste for 24 into 25, 25 into 26, because we have the transactions just for that fiscal year period, and I'm not monitoring. I mean, I'm out at whatever, ZA, I probably have a couple, several hundred lines, but it's the original statement from the auditors. When I go hit save as, it says Tom Scanlon and Associates, so it's one of those that I use, and everything has tied out since then. And if you want to get back to the original point, when all of this was put in, I recreated by commitment year each tax taking. So when you go through and start calculating out interest dates, you can go back to a 2009 commitment of the original tax amount, and all of the calculations come out. And I've never had an issue with it. I find it interesting that it's up on there.
Thank you. Okay. Number 13, transmit statement of receipts weekly to accountant.
Mr. Chairman, I think the DLS report sums it up better than I could. Just saying that we recommend that the collector treasurer complete and transmit its statement of receipts to the accountant weekly. In recent years, this has been 1, 2, or more months after the close of a month before this critical activity is done. And sometimes that just makes it difficult for reporting cash in terms of knowing how much cash we've received in the previous month. Having a delay in that is inefficient.
Okay. Conduct cash and, oops, sorry.
No. Again,
I would like to speak on that
If I could just differentiate
Could you sit up front?
again
I,
between tasks.
right,
This is a task.
That's right.
That's a
those are the
task.
tasks.
I believe the statement of not receiving something until December is incorrect, 100%. We had your town accountant here. I have my printouts that the August cash was in place shortly after the month ended, and there was a very deliberate decision for the financial team to go through and allow your accountant to go through and do all of the state reporting ahead of time, and it was agreed. I think that it's incorrect that it's in there, meant to vilify me. I'm happy to produce my copies of the who, what, when, and where. I don't believe that's correct. I'd ask you independently to speak to your town accountant to see how last month's or the month before went. I think there was a very steep learning curve. I think the final closeout of fiscal '24 was a baptism by fire, and that'll be my phrase for it. Please go through, do your investigation. We've gone through and sorted out quite a few things, systemic issues. Actually, you're welcome to discuss with the accountant.
Okay. It should happen as quickly.
Absolutely. As we're sitting right now, it's a matter of her finding time to be with my time to go through and sort things
Should
out.
happen as quickly as possible, is what they're saying.
The recommendation of weekly is a good goal. Is it achievable? It's a good goal. Right now, the monthly reconciliations are solid. Maybe you go through every other week and aim for 26, but it's what it was in September is not what it was in the month of June. Fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Oh, maybe you walked away too soon, Rich. Conduct cash and receivables reconciliation monthly. Again, a procedural topic.
It's a procedural topic. It's very interesting, and it's automated. So the only times we were having issues is when your original setup had mislinked information on it. I give you the example, interest and expense fees. It's a fine that the assessor levies. If you own a piece of commercial property and you don't turn in the marketing data that the assessor requests, the penalty is a $250 fine. It is placed on a third quarter real estate. The original 2022 interest and expense account has been linked to the 22 real estate, 23 real estate, 24 real estate, and to 25 real estate. So it is forever being an issue. I'm sort of at the end and can't change it. The beginning of the year has sort of set things in stone, so for '26, it should correct itself. So little things, if we wanted to go back to the tax title and its reconciliation, where the links that had interest, which isn't recognized until a payment is made, being taken as a receipt and posted against a receivable, so your number will never jive. It's supposed to be your commitments and refunds increase your receivable, your abatements and your payments reduce it. Well, now you've added a fifth item in there, and it would never jive. So it's a matter of sort of combing out a great deal of what's in there. Right now, last month's summary of things, my proof is, again, the C, R, A, and P we've gone through. My proof is, here are your outstanding bills less your credits. And I've been able to do that. And I can go back, I think I still have 2020 and 2021, which is pre-VADAR, proving out my, my internal balances. Regardless of what is on the general ledger or what the collector treasurer has for his balance, there's been a couple of adjustments being made. You know, if anything, it's reducing. Actually, it's increasing. I'd have to take a look at my notes, but you know, there's ample time for all of it. Identifying what it is substantially, I don't think there's much of anything that had been taken care of. I don't think we even have too many excise bills that are beyond 10 years still on the list.
Mr. Chairman,
So-
can I just point, I'm looking at number 3 in the recommendations. And number 3 basically suggests that this committee would do a study, a management model study. It doesn't say that we're going to be looking at all the other recommendations. It basically tells this committee what it should be doing. And no disrespect to you, okay, but these other tasks that are some particular jobs, okay, versus a government structure. I think number 3 kind of tells us what our role is. And that's solving 1 through 16 minus 3. I don't think that's for us to do, because I think that's a management structure that can try to do that. That's how I read the government study committee on number 3 of page 10.
Of the town of Dudley's, yeah, this
Yeah.
one here.
If I could, on something that's not related to my position at all, I think the suggestion of what had been previously done through the Collins Center or some similar group for the study committee, I think that's, if it were me, I'd take a look at the 1990, the 2004, and anything relevant in the last 5 years, what had been suggested. Clearly, Dudley is not Lexington, but it's not Goshen either. There needs to be a look from 10,000 feet away, maybe 100 feet away, and then up close and being able to say, okay, really, do there need to be 15 city councilors in Dudley? You know, where does, and a determination should be made. I agree, some tasks are good to knock off and give them the due priority, but I think this is the current structure versus what would logically be the next step. And I think if you had a model, this is what was suggested in 2000, here's 2004, and here is the more recent study for, and I threw Lexington out thinking they're very progressive. Who knows what the next review is going to be, But you should be able to come up with someone between 10 and 20,000, not in a metropolitan area, similar tax base, something like that, I thought.
Okay.
So Rick, do you mean to say that some of these items we shouldn't look at, or wouldn't be under our purview?
Yeah, I mean, the financial management review has obviously a number of recommendations. And one of them is to establish a government study committee. And it doesn't suggest that the government study committee should be trying to deal with all these other items per se. It establishes, it suggests there be a government study committee or a comprehensive review that included examining neighboring communities' charters, meeting with officials, department heads, et cetera, and would establish a top-down management model for all departments reporting to the professional. The proposed structure was not adopted. This is what it points out for the 2003 study. So Dudley's decentralized structure does not provide essential coordination and communication to effectively and efficiently carry out the functions of government. We recommend that the select board appoint a government study committee to reevaluate the current structure. As a matter of best practice, the committee should be made up of individuals with varied backgrounds, go on and on. But a review of communities comparable to Dudley show that all have a professional administrator, 2/3 have an appointed treasurer collector. Through this process, the committee would evaluate what currently works well and is not worth preserving, and what changes should be considered. At the completion of its review, the committee would report its findings and recommend recommendations to the select board to consider and potentially have meeting action. So the way I interpret this is that this is looking for a form of government study, not trying to examine the individual items outside of number 3. Now, some of these, obviously, like number 2, converting an elected treasurer to a appointed, that's clearly part of what would be part of a government study recommendation. I think these other things are generally tasks. I think when you look at, if you're looking at certain, proposed bylaws, I think those are government study related. Not so much tasks by a particular department head. So I think we want to be, I think it will take us an awful lot of time to try and veer off course from what this, I think in some ways it's a narrow scope this committee's been given. On one hand, on the other hand, it's a very broad scope in terms of how the government should operate. Because we can't solve the issue of, and I'm not suggesting this is the case, but if you have a department head who's not doing his or her job as is suggested, well, we can't solve that. You need a government structure that can solve that. And I think that's what we're being charged with here. I think this is a good report. I think this tells you some things that the town needs to know. But I think from what I read in number 3 seems to be charging us with how do we organize the town to address those things, not that we can possibly address those things.
So, for example,
That's how I'm reading it, so yes.
so from about number 9 on, review of revolving funds and all the other ones, those we may not focus on those, or even approach them at all. The whole system that monitors those things is what we should be concerned with.
That's how I interpret the rule
Yeah.
that's in the report, right? So I'm very confident that Olivia and John and, the financial team can address those. I think, assuming they choose to. The question is, do they choose not to? Do they choose to? And that's where the form of government comes into play in my mind. So, and that's not in any way, I think that, you know, no, not at all. I just think we're just trying to differentiate between, I have every reason to believe everybody here is competent to do these things. That's not what I think we're here to judge.
Yes, Rich.
Question, when will we have access to the other reports?
So through the chair, I'm hoping to get those town emails set up relatively soon. Amanda, sitting over there, is also our IT person here, and we're actually launching a new website tomorrow, so that's been taking up quite a bit of her time, making sure that that launch goes smoothly. So it's hopefully within the next few days when she gets a chance to add your town emails to the system, and then I can get that login information to each of you. Then we can have access to a OneDrive and I can start uploading files into there and make sure that I have printed copies for the next meeting. So maybe a week or so. Really depends on the website transition and Amanda's availability.
Do you have like when you have a job, it has like a list of your responsibilities in your contract. Is there a way to get some of these people's contracts? Like lists of
Like job
responsibilities?
descriptions?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the committee requested, I could provide job descriptions for certain positions.
Okay.
I mean, this was like basics, but like I would like to know like what is it actually, what are you doing?
Scope of duties.
Yeah.
I really see number 9 as the start of the detailed, almost like it's like an auditor saying, you need to reconcile your cash, you need to make sure this happens, that happens. Those are the transactional type of things. If we didn't focus on those, do you have what would the feeling about that be? Is someone expecting us to solve those problems?
Again, Mr. Chairman, kind of what Mr. LaFond was saying, that you can use this as a guide, and if you want to take what's said in number 3, establish a government study committee as your charge, and if that's how the committee chooses to interpret it, then by all means you can do that. I'm trying to not necessarily give my opinion on things and more let you all guide yourselves.
Well, it's a very good point you bring up. I mean, is current government here created, is it staffed? Is it a reporting structure? This is a, grow the company kind of problem, or not a problem, just an assessment, right? To give our opinion on, are we, the review, are we prepared to take this town to be bigger, better, more efficient?
Right, and you're remarkably diplomatic.
Oh, yeah,
I'll give you that.
absolutely. Excellent,
But
you're a pro.
You mentioned a couple times if the committee feels that's our role. Well, to me, I don't think it's our job to define our role. I think, what is the role and how do we perform that role? Not to decide for ourselves what the role is. So, again, admire your diplomacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that note, through the chair, if you want to pursue following number 3 and sort of the recommendations it has within it, yes, that is definitely feasible for this committee to do, and try not to be diplomatic here. I guess that is sort of what I think the town as a whole is hoping to get at, is what works, what doesn't work, the processes that work, how does our structure look compared to other towns, getting into that.
But not how a cash receipt is reconciled. We're not gonna, we don't want to solve that.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Mr. Chair. We want to make sure that their management is in place to ensure that there's a way to correct the issues
Exactly.
that have been identified. These operational tasks are 10 items, of the 16, from my perspective. Those are things that, we have to, I think it is our charge, stated here and in the Board of Selectmen meetings that I paid attention to make sure, again, that management has the tools available to them to make sure that the government itself is being as efficient as possible, both in normal performance and troubleshooting issues and problems.
Good point.
Yeah.
So then we just focus on the structure of government, and then everything else falls into place after that? Is that what you're looking
I
at?
think that's a very good place to start.
I
It
agree.
doesn't necessarily
I
mean that's
agree.
where we end, but it may be.
That's right.
But
I
it's certainly
agree.
where we start.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly good to see some of the points that are driving their recommendation, you know, to form a study committee. That's obviously, you know, helpful to see. But to your point, it's about structure and tools.
Yeah, I do enough reconciliation for the 8 hours during the day. I don't want to do anything more.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Structure, tools, accountability.
So I mean, that is the research, right?
Yes.
Is what makes a good running government structure? That is, you know, what do we need to change in order to operate better?
Question
We need
for-
models, we need to
So then,
look at.
would that be a reference back to the past two study committees? Would we base a lot of our thinking on those recommendations? If they've already been done, they've already been done. You can use them as a baseline, no?
So through the chair, that's why I had included the 1990 and 2004 charter committee results and sort of the work that they had done to get to that point, so you can all use it as a reference and figure out if some of the information in there discussed is still relevant today, because that was 21 years ago.
Right.
And 1990 was 35 years ago, so what is necessarily still relevant,
Right.
but at least giving you that background of what we tried to do as a town, I guess.
And also, Paul, I mean, we put the treasurer collector appointed versus elected question before the public, and they voted no. That's true, right? We put that was voted on.
So the last instance of that would have been, I think, at least, I've been here 4 years now, it's been a few more than 4 years. It went to a town meeting vote to make the treasurer collector and town clerk into appointed positions, and it failed at town meeting.
Failed a town meeting. If 80% do it and we find out that everybody says that's the best thing on the earth, we still have to convince people that that's the case.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Whether or not that was
I
done
mean, we're
properly
not
in the
involved
past
in
is a question.
politics here, right? We're just here to give, if we still believe that to be the right course of action in order for the town to operate, then we say it, right?
Right, and we've got to give that compelling
We
evidence.
give that, our research, and we, and we can beat the drum to the public and at the town meetings. I mean, that's part of our role, right?
Right.
So we'll do that if that's appropriate, right?
And I think it's important to note that ELS does these reviews and studies in virtually any community that will request it. They have what is their best practice, but their best practice is not necessarily the best fit for the town of Dudley, or for the town of Webster, or for the town of Charlton, or any specific town. So keeping that in the back of your mind, yes, this is the best practice, it's recognized, but there may be circumstances that say, no, in this particular case, we need to be slightly different, or not, But again, that's a question that you need to keep, I think, on the table.
We also have the ability to survey the public. I was reading that somewhere, and I apologize for not having my notes, but we can survey the public. There is a chance that our citizens actually may agree, they just didn't turn out to vote. Because that happens a lot on a lot of big issues, that people just don't turn out to render their opinion.
All levels.
So that could be a tool that we could use to get information from the public to see if this would serve them well.
In the last 20, whatever years, 30 years, obviously local governments in the whole region they've changed too. So these, so whatever research was done 30 years ago, okay, I'm not saying it's not relevant, but like you say, it's helpful, but I think, you have the ability to see, well, why did this town do that back in whatever, I mean, So there's been changes since then that may be of some assistance too, once you do all the research.
So, to the elected versus appointed, I sit alone here. I'm the one person who shows up to as many things as possible. I think the answer to the question of whether this position should be elected or appointed would be in part of a bigger scheme. And I think that's what the task is. This is what is here, and a step to modernity means taking what's here and moving it over as a giant piece. If you want to take a look in the last, we'll call it 8 years, maybe 10 years, there have been some bylaw changes where what used to be the executive assistant to the Board of Selectmen has changed into the town administrator role, and some pieces have been added. Whether or not they fit the bigger structure as things, maybe that's the question. And the answer is, what does Webster do? What does a similar town, what does Sturbridge do? And fit those pieces together so that Dudley today fits Dudley tomorrow with some continuity, some sense. And again, I'm the guy rolling the dice every 3 years with, being elected or not being elected, but, I brag on being the high vote getter. So there is some validation. And again, in 2012, the position was combined and kept elected, and then it came up in 2020 and was voted down. I appreciate the independence. I also appreciate that the next step may be something different. And I don't think this should dominate the conversation this evening. I think what's ultimately put out should address that, and it shouldn't be done individually. It should be a bigger framework. If you hear what the Board of Selectmen serve as, they appoint the tree warden, they are cemetery commissioners, highway commissioners, and maybe the investigation of everything. All of your pieces line up, and where should it be? I heard finance director being mentioned somewhere. That's, I think, the task. Everything should be sort of organized similarly to what our neighbors do or our peers.
Thank you. A thought occurs to me. Should we pursue, if someone says, I like number 2 or I like number 8, whatever, should we pursue those all simultaneously, or should we perhaps work on some in an order? I don't know if that matters or not. Just get people's opinions. What would be the best way to tackle this?
But, Mr. Chair, it is the purpose to look at government structure. Are we going to dig into these individual items still? Do you believe? Are we still going to do
I think some of these are, yes, I believe so. Some of these are the issues that will shape the government.
Okay.
That was my ask earlier, is that if we focus on the structure of government, does that then lend to taking care of some of the other questions that are on this task list?
One's a top-down look, and the other one's from the bottom up.
So if you take that structure question, does that then inherently,
I mean, you have the 3 buckets that you brought up, you know, what.
A logical grouping of the items, yeah.
The logical grouping of the items, and you look at it from how does the government structure today affect each one of those buckets? And you look at the government structure as respect to those 3 areas, I think you're gonna trip out over all of these items pointed out.
I wouldn't be comfortable saying tonight that, no, we shouldn't look at XXX. I think we should have discussions on each topic, but what's our starting point? You know, some of these may just wash out after we take a look. If we look at the big picture, the government structure, and some of them may just wash out, but I think just eliminating them tonight would be a mistake.
Okay.
But I
Mr.
think,
Chan- oh,
if I
sorry.
may,
Yes.
but I think starting with the big question in number 3, which is the government structure, I think that is the place to start, is by examining, again, it's been stated a number of times, what are our neighbors doing? Who has a certain type of structure that would work better for Dudley? I think we should start there, and then as we start to parse out what that structure looks like, getting to elected versus appointed, these other items are tied to those. But I think we have to start at the top with sussing out the structure, which is stated in number 3, because I agree with you.
Right. Number 3 doesn't say solve the other issues.
Correct, correct, but tangentially, they are related.
Exactly, right.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say that I do plan on providing the committee with quite a bit of additional information, not only from the questions raised tonight, but also information I was planning on providing at the next meeting anyway. I just didn't want to give it all at once for fear of information overload and having us sit here for 4 hours trying to figure out what's next.
Okay.
So you certainly don't have to assign research topics tonight. You can wait until the next meeting. You'll have the information in advance of the meeting shared through OneDrive for you all to look at so you can be better prepared. But of course, it's up to the committee if they want to assign stuff tonight. I just want to let you know there's a lot more information forthcoming.
If I could point out, Mr. Chairman, too, that, I mean, oh, sorry, Olivia, but Olivia has easy access to a lot of information that would be relevant to the committee. So rather than, than me or Paul or anyone else, we're gonna look into this. It would take, Olivia very little time to contact the Collins Center or contact, and hey, send me your examples. So rather than people here trying to do what takes her very little time, I don't want to put it on you, but realistically, I mean, for us to be doing things, taking time to do things that she has at her fingertips. So when I talked about having some examples of methodology to get to the big picture, I haven't seen a government study committee report in years and years and years. So I don't know what they look like. I don't know procedurally or methodology, method, something like that. How you get from A to Z and trying to accomplish a task like this. I think we have to have a little bit of a method before we start figuring out how we're going to get through this. My thought, and not to put, but you're the one here who's staffing this group.
What I'm here for,
Telling you.
correct. Yep.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I can definitely go out and get any of the information that the committee requests that I get, and then present it all to you for analysis and discussion, further questions, things like that. So yeah, I would have no problem reaching out to the Collins Center, or like Hannah said, getting those job descriptions. I can compile that all and start on my info finding mission.
What towns are very similar to us? Is my
It
question.
depends.
Those comps are listed, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
listed
Yeah.
here.
Oh, okay.
Document, yeah,
All right.
in the
Excellent.
appendix.
All right, thank you.
With flow charts.
Page, no,
This one here?
there's a list. somewhere.
It says annex, right?
Looks like it's on page 18 of the report.
I'm starting at the back.
Okay, very good. There you go.
Perhaps having an understanding of what the different types of executive secretary slash strong town manager slash weak town manager slash town administrator would be helpful as well.
Yeah, and that's why I think the charters are important.
Are we looking at the administration column where it says administrator manager?
Yeah, because it's really a charter that, it's not, the titles don't mean as much as they used to.
I would think our research topics should just be reading through the binder and the materials we have now.
There's enough here.
There's enough.
There's enough here to fill my month.
But if we can, yes,
I'd make the suggestion that maybe for our next meeting, we try to create as a committee, using individual contributions, some sort of mission statement, you know, for the group, tailored from, you know, the observation in number 3, tailored from, you know, what we understand our task to be, and that will, I think, drive a lot of the future conversation. Because without it, we're doing the dog paddle, and we're doing a lot of it.
Agreed.
so agenda item number 1 for the next meeting might be establishment of a mission statement. So if we can all bring thoughts and ideas about a mission statement, so that way we can agree on what we want to do, right? Perfect. I think that's fabulous. Is there anything, now Hannah, you mentioned job descriptions. If Olivia gets those, are we talking about job descriptions for just the department heads?
I was thinking of all the ones that were listed in that document with like the big chart.
Okay. Is that clear enough,
Department
Olivia?
heads, yeah.
Yeah, department heads.
Department, I think
If
it's the,
I can pull together department heads
okay.
fairly easily, yes.
Olivia, you mentioned there's other documents that you're going to get to us, that you have now. And the reason I ask is, but to follow, you know, Richard's suggestion, I think in order to, you know, kind of prepare some information to share, I think I want to see all of the information you have available now, because that may obviously help us do that individually.
Yeah, through the chair, I can definitely start getting that all compiled. I have it mostly in like digital folders. I just have to start parsing out based on the organization of like the table of contents so far, and then get that into the OneDrive. If I'd given it all to you tonight, it would have been like that much, and that's a lot to digest at once.
Do you have to give it to us in paper and electronic format?
I don't. If you all prefer electronic format, I can.
I'm with you on that, okay?
I don't know if there's a requirement or something.
No,
The chairman's
no,
recommendation.
I do not want any more paper.
Do we all
I'll
agree?
print what I need, so yeah,
I-
electronic, yeah.
I don't mind electronic, I like the paper.
Yeah.
So.
I am the outlier.
Paul is the outlier. Okay.
What else is new?
If anyone other than Paul wants me to keep up with the printed binder, I can certainly do that. I can do electronic for everybody. I mean, it saves me time and money if I don't have to print out
I can take care of my own
Yeah.
paper.
these binders.
So you're okay seeing it, you'll print the
So-
file?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So
Saves the
everybody
town
is.
money.
Everybody's fine electronic.
Or saving the town money.
Yeah. Okay. that-
Step one.
Task
that works
one
great
done.
then.
Number one done.
So everything will be in the OneDrive then.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll all have equal access to it, so we can all see whatever, no one's seeing anything, no one has one bigger list than another.
Right, and like I
Common
said,
drive.
those will be in about a week, depending on Amanda's schedule, to get that all set up. And then you'll all have to come in, get your passwords for security purposes, set up with your accounts, authenticator, things like that.
Good. Okay, so,
Okay.
Amanda's asking if you're all gonna need badges. Amanda, that's a good point. Yeah, I'll give them all badges at this point, just to be able to,
If they have headshots already, like professional people, if they want us to email them headshots, it makes it 10 times easier.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
once we get an
emailing headshots for your badges. They all look like
What would we need those for?
badge. Identification, accessing the building if for some reason the door is locked down there. Not 24/7, but on meeting nights.
Can I just give you my work one?
That's perfectly fine, like just digital format.
Okay.
It makes it 10 times easier, then you don't have to try to catch me running around.
So we should email those to her, to Amanda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we can find her on the website.
Her email is agage, so it's AGAGE @dudleyma.gov.
Okay.
And perhaps you can forward that to our current email addresses.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can send her email.
Okay. Action items for next time. We're gonna work on a mission statement. We're gonna be seeing some electronic items once we get access to the OneDrive.
Yes.
But I think we can all take a look at some of these items and, look, we're all interested, right? So I think starting to just do some basic research, retain it, and so then we can bring that to the next meeting. And in the next meeting, we can really start to dig into some of these and say, okay, we'll focus on 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 or whatever it is. And maybe the other ones will settle themselves through that work. I think it's too early. We could request a department head to come in and talk to us about a specific item, right?
At any time, yes, you could request that if you want someone for the next meeting.
I don't think, but it'd be too early,
Might
was
be-
my
yeah.
next statement.
If it's too early, then
Maybe after next time or the time after that, we might start to say, hey, could someone come in and talk through this issue or something like that?
yeah, and I can get that coordinated.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Wow, that's great. Okay. Anybody else have anything to discuss?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all approve, all in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thank you.